Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vickie Poole. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. This podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach and is all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host, and I have a special guest with us today, Sue Anderson, and I'll be introducing her in just a moment. But I would love if you could leave a comment for us and remember to get all these wonderful, amazing guests out into the world a lot more. Like, subscribe, share, and please make a comment and let us know what resonates with you about this guest, because that is how we get this podcast to grow. So now let's get started. So this beautiful woman right here, we know each other slightly because we were both in a group together of entrepreneurs, and it is just amazing to chat with her today. And I was just sharing with her just a moment ago that I've had so many podcasts. We've already spoken once before, but I've had so many podcast recordings recently that I don't remember so much about this, so it'll be an exploration for me too. Isn't that funny? Oh my goodness. I really probably should not admit that, but that is the truth. And so Sue is one of the things that she's doing that I am just so intrigued about is she's creating and building a resort. No,
Yeah, it's a retreat center.
retreat
Sort of
center,
a resort.
retreat center in Tennessee. And so I would love to let's don't start there, but I just want to give a little teaser out there. But let's start with, what do you do? And then maybe tell us a little bit about how you got started with what you do.
That sounds great. Thanks for having me on. I'm always excited, and I was excited and looking forward to this. So
Yes, me
fantastic.
too.
Thank you. So I've been since 2005. I've been a writer, a commercial writer for hire, hired pen, hired gun, whatever. So, writing all kinds of stuff for businesses. So especially when I first started, this was actually pretty funny. When I first started, I had a coach that was working with me, and she was trying to convince me that, in 2005, there were other ways to get paid to write instead of like hoping to get on Oprah's book list or something. And I thought
Yeah.
that was the only thing. I loved writing, but I'm like, kind of also like eating and having shelter. So
Go figure.
picky like that, very high maintenance. So she's like, well, there's this new thing. It's the internet. I'm like, I know about the internet. She goes, well, every business eventually is going to have a website on here, and every website needs words. So this is a fantastic way you could start getting paid to write. I'm like, So I did. And since 2005, I've built a small team of US based writers, mostly stay at home moms. And we write together. We've been serving clients for, what is it, 19 years now, which
Wow,
is
that's
amazing.
impressive.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
cool. The field has changed considerably, especially this past year or so, with AI coming on the scene.
I
So
was
we're
going to
kind of
ask about
reinventing.
that.
It's like I got a love-hate thing here.
Yeah.
So we've had to kind of reinvent a lot of what we do, because a lot of our clients were like, oh, well, we could just do this for free using chat. And we're like, oh, no. So
Yeah.
you cannot, in fact. I mean, you can, but
Yeah, well, there's something about the human piece of it that makes it different. Even though I know, like with Chat GPT, you can train it to sound something like you, but you really have to, like, because I use it some, and I'll be honest, I have to keep taking different classes to know how to talk to the damn thing, because
yeah,
otherwise it just gives you some kind of, you know,
it's
random
true.
stuff. So
It's
yeah, go
true.
ahead, keep going. I'm sorry.
It's true. It's so true. It's very true. I mean, and I use it daily,
Hmm.
but you can't just like use that, and I mean, you can, but not great quality. You can't, it can write pretty well. It can mimic pretty well, but it can't think critically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of an important piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
But during this past, 19 years, sometimes I was the sole provider. We had 2 kids. They were growing up, all this. It was a very hectic and at times extremely hard going for our lives. And at blacking out part of this.
Well, now I don't feel so bad about all the flubbing up before then. Keep going.
It's so I remember at times it was so busy. It was 16 to 18-hour days with 2 kids, and it was rough. Basically I worked, and that was pretty much it.
And that's when you were doing the writing
just writing, searching for work, trying to get work for the team to do. I mean, it was a lot.
Well, when you're responsible for a team, that's pretty big too, right?
Yeah. And I had, at first I built it just me, and that was fine, but I was working 16-hour days, and I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I can make a living at this. I knew I was going to need to raise prices, wasn't sure how to do that. It felt a little weird. It was, very commodity driven at the time. And so I brought the team on because I was like, well, all right, if I can't put more hours, but I can put more people, and they don't want to have to market, this will be a good deal. So it has been. And some of those writers are still with me since like 2008.
So how did you find the writers?
One of them I went to high school with.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Another one, I went onto a site called workathomemom.com. It was an old bulletin board. And I put in, at the time I had made a course teaching people how to make money writing, all this. And so I was offering the course for free just to get some testimonials, feedback, all this kind of stuff. And some of the people that went through that were fantastic writers. And so I ended up hiring some throughout the years. One of them came from Work at Home Mom. And she's been with me, almost the whole time, which is amazing.
So do you still offer that course?
No, it's gone now. Because everything about how I built my business the first time around, it doesn't
translate anymore.
No, yeah, definitely not. So, but she's been with me since, forever basically, and is now my project manager and head writer and all, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
But when it was, even with that, I was extremely busy and literally didn't go outside unless it was to get to the car to take the kids somewhere or pick them up.
Wow.
That was outside. And I thought, I knew probably, we lived in Florida. I'm like, I would walk in the morning, like really early morning before it got too hot. And then after that, just indoors. And that was kind of a habit that stuck with me. It was, I guess like in fight or flight and survival mode is like you pare down to just the basics, and it was like just work,
right?
Feed everybody and work, and that was about it. That marriage ended. It was not any healthier than my life. And in 2012, I divorced and ended up meeting my current husband, and he had a whole different lifestyle going on. Very, very relaxed, very zen, like very just. He's an artist. He was building.
Is that his art behind you?
No. This is just from Overstock.
Okay.
I call him a kinetic artist. So he had a Volkswagen restoration shop. And it became like #1 in the whole country, which is amazing. We were winning awards. It was on, magazine covers and movie producers seeking us out, this type of thing, TV, reality TV people. I mean, it was like a really big deal. But he, even in the midst of all that, was just a very like chill, So we would spend a lot of time just sitting on the front porch and talking and all this. Along about that time, I read a book by Trevor Blake called 3 Simple Steps. Trevor has, he's in his 60s. When he was in his 50s, he started his first business. He grew it to 9 figures.
Oh man.
Insane. And so, no, I'm sorry, 8 figures for him. And he has built and sold several. And I'm like, this is interesting. And he says he only works about 4 hours a day and probably half that time he counts it as work, but it's really not. He's out walking his dogs in the woods. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
He recommended spending time outdoors, just
Where
unplug,
you
just
haven't been
doing
in a
nothing.
while.
Yeah, I was like, what is this outdoors place you're talking about? For me, to be, and it had been assigned by a client I was working with, and I was like, all right. So I started hanging out. I'm like, what do we do out here? This is stupid. This is boring. This is a waste. I should be working. Gradually, that kind of melted, and I'm like, oh, I could deadhead some rose bushes while I'm here. And so I was doing that. Oh, well, this is cool. I wonder what I could do with these rose buds. Is there anything interesting? Oh, I could make jelly. I could be like, my brain started getting really creative with it. And then not long after, I was taking a very long car ride home from seeing my kids in Tennessee. And the idea just kind of hit me. Hey, you should build a retreat center for entrepreneurs. Excuse me, what? Like, I should do what? I love.
I'm drunk on sunshine, I believe.
I was like, I love retreats, being on them. That's fantastic. I've been serving entrepreneurs my entire work life. Maybe some of them are indoors and on screens too much too. Maybe it's hurting their lives too. Huh. And as I drove, this is like a 5-hour drive, this whole plan just kind of basically downloaded, which is that doesn't happen to me. I'm like, this is weird, and I'm driving and taking notes, like not looking. I'm, driving and with this hand taking notes. And by the time I got home, I had a fully fledged business plan, basically.
Nice.
Absolutely nuts. Started looking for land, and I'm like, this, I told the
So,
realtor, I'm like, this.
well, let's stop a second. So
Okay.
you get home and you've got this plan all set out,
Hey,
and
honey,
you
guess
tell your
what?
husband, listen to what I just decided.
Yeah.
What happened there? Because I know that had to have happened, right?
Yeah, it was a little weird. I'm like, so I got this, stay with me here. I've got this idea. Hear me out.
Yeah. So what was his response to all that?
It was really cool. He's like, huh, I can see that working. That's pretty cool. I like this idea.
Nice. I like this man.
Yeah. We had a business to wrap up though. He was still, like, so we're like, well, we don't know when, we don't know how, but yeah, that sounds like it'd be really cool. He's like, I know, I can't do what I'm doing forever, and that'd be a cool next thing. I like that. He liked the area, all this. So I called a realtor and I said, it may take a year or 2 years. It might take 5 years, but I'm just kind of curious what you've seen out there that might be good. And, I don't want to waste your time dragging you all over Tennessee, but I would love to see some properties. He's like, oh yeah, let's do it. This is great. Must be slow. So we started looking, and most of the properties were like, not a fit, either too rocky, too high, too inaccessible.
So what were
really
you, when you were thinking about what it needed to look like, what was going through your mind? What did it need to have?
I didn't really know at first.
Yeah.
It was kind of like art, like you'll know it when you see it, like if it's going to speak to you, you'll know it, and so we kept looking and looking, and he's like, I think there's this other county. There's Greene County. We've been looking up further north. He said, let's go a little further south. Greene County is gorgeous. It's got these long views. Like, you're going to love it. I'm like, all right, I'll try it out. There's this one property. He's like, well, there's a flood zone. I'm like, well, we don't want to see that. He's like, well, I don't know. Like, based on what you said you want to do, this looks like it could really be great. Let's go check it out. So we did. Oh my goodness, Vickie, the first time I laid eyes on this place, I was like, oh, it has a creek that runs the whole length of the property. It has hills and like trees and a pasture, and it's 35 acres of land. Like, you can't hear road noise. It's just quiet and beautiful. So I think I visited it 3 or 4 times, and I was like, I want to do this. But I didn't have the money. Yeah. Little problem there. I mean, great deal on the land, but more than I could qualify for, that we could qualify for, is, another house or another mortgage. And so I was working with a company called capitalism.com at the time, and went on a podcast with the owner, Ryan Moran. He was suggesting, he's like, well, why don't you bring in some investors? I'm like, well, I've never done that.
That feels scary, doesn't it?
Yeah, that was like, what?
Then do I
So I
have
ended up
people that I'm working for? I don't understand. Yeah.
like, it's scary. I don't know. I ended up doing it. So people heard the podcast, and a couple people from that community reached out, and they're like, I'm very interested. And I'm like, wow, really amazing. And two of them, came on board. We were able to put the down payment on the property and start, recovering mortgage at this point. But this, like, it got rolling. I was like, oh my gosh. So within just a couple, like 4 months of doing the podcast, now we're like, we closed on this loan.
Wow, nice. Can I ask you some questions about that?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm just curious, because like these two people come in as investors and they help with the down payment, right?
Mhm.
So then you're making the mortgage payments or whatever it's called when it's a piece of land and not a
Yep.
home. Is it still a mortgage payment? What
I'm
is it
still
called?
calling it a mortgage.
Okay, okay. So you've got this, and then I'm assuming that they have like some type of ownership part of that because they invested in. And so you have some kind of contract that gives that, right? And
Yes.
so then what happens? I'm just so curious because I've never heard of any of this like this. So what happens when you go in and you build your retreat center and it starts making money? So did they retain a part of like a percentage of what everything happens, or did they
Yeah.
just get their money back?
Oh, that's a great question. Great question. So I hear that I have overgiven, but I feel like these people came in, these are angel investors, like in every sense of the word, just they saw the dream and they're like, yes, I want part of that. I want to help you make that, which is like, oh my gosh, very different from private equity or venture capital. They want to see like, what do you have running right now? What are your numbers? All this kind of stuff.
Right.
So the way we did this was, once we start making money, for the next 10 years, the two of them will share in, I opened 25% of the initial equity and all that. So I didn't end up filling that first round. So they have a little bit less together, a little bit less than 25%, but they'll get that for 10 years, which
Okay.
is, based on the business plan, this should be very, very good for them
Yeah.
once we finally get going.
And who knows, they might want to reinvest in some of it into the business again. Ah, this is fascinating. This is
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, it's wild. It involved really expensive attorneys. Like, normal attorneys don't do this kind of thing. It's almost like an SEC file. I mean, it was insane. And I was like, how much for this? So.
Yeah. So then who foot the bill for the attorneys and stuff?
We did. Well, somewhat from the investing. Yeah, actually, we did.
Okay.
So, and then, yeah, it got a little, it was way more than we thought, but
Yeah, yeah.
we had to,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well,
But it's,
here you
it's
are.
there.
You've got this property and you need to like I would love to see some pictures. I know you can't do it right now, but I would love for you to send me some pictures because I'd love to see the property. And I can't wait to kind of see it. Are you going to do like a video journal or something with the
Yeah.
process?
Oh yeah. So right now we're living in Alabama. We have our house on the market. Um, about 100 feet that way is the VW shop, which
Okay.
closed beginning of last year. So it's a very unique property. Is the best way to put it. For the right person, it's going to be amazing. And it
Right.
was for my husband bought this, for the shop and all that. Once it sells, we're moving up to the property. We built a barn.
Okay.
We're going to be living in a camper by the barn. And
Nice.
starting to build. And as soon as we're up there, as soon as our feet hit the ground, we'll be documenting the whole thing because we're doing everything from
Oh,
milling our own
I'm so
wood.
excited. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. And the dream is ultimately I want to have 20 guest residences there. I'm thinking about geodesic domes because they're just gorgeous and you can angle them whichever way. So they have this beautiful, huge swath of windows. There'll be retreat, like venue, meeting space. I want to have a sustainable farm going. So we're doing a lot of permaculture gardening, all of that and alpacas and Highland cows, just because they're so
Oh,
freaking cute.
wow. That sounds cool. So do you have like a, a timeline that you feel like you're working with now that you think that your feet will be on the ground and you'll be starting? Are you starting more of the stuff before you actually get there, or are you just doing the barn until you get there?
Just the barn for now.
Okay.
It's about 5 hours away, so it's not like and we didn't have a place to stay. So now we have the barn at least. We can
Yeah.
go in, but during the winter,
So does it already have running water and electricity and
no, no,
everything?
no. It's
Okay, so
just the
all
barn,
that
no
stuff's
power,
got to
no
be done.
water. Yeah.
Okay.
Now the
Yeah.
property we brought in power and water to the property.
Okay.
So,
All
and
right.
my son
I
actually
just
got married on the property a couple years ago,
Oh,
which
nice. Because I just know with my children's father when we bought well, he had property already and we were going to build our house, but there was no running water, no electricity to the property. There was a long driveway. So
yeah,
it was very, very expensive to have that electricity run.
right.
And at that time, at the beginning, we didn't have the money to do how much the county was going to charge to put the water out there. So we built a well
Oh,
and we
nice.
had all of that stuff until it got later on and we got the water run. But it was like, is what?
Oh,
Doesn't this benefit
excavation
you? You'll be
alone.
charging us every month. I don't get it. But yeah, so we had a well and
Oh,
everything
yeah.
for a while because I was blown away with what they charge to do all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were fortunate in that there is water, like there is city water near,
Okay.
so that was not so, it was a few thousand, but it wasn't like
Yeah.
exorbitant. Excavation was like the best quote we got for excavation for the whole project was over $200,000. I'm like, so we're gonna have to do this in pieces.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it might be more fun in pieces anyway,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
discovery part of it.
That's true. It is true.
Yeah,
And we've learned, in the past 2 years of waiting, we've learned to be a lot more patient than we would have been.
yeah, yeah. So,
So
so your
yeah,
husband, I assume now, because you said that the Volkswagen thing is closed, and also does that mean he's kind of semi-retired or retired, so that this is going to be all your
yes,
focus is getting everything ready for that?
exactly, exactly. Before he did Volkswagens, he was in construction for about 25 years.
Okay.
So he knows every phase, which has been great. So he's been spending this time, for the past year or so, really just studying like how can we build off grid? What are some ways we can work, like do it, DIY, but not janky.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, when I said we built our house on this property and everything, my husband was actually a craftsman and a builder and everything. So he designed the house,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, he ended up having to do a lot of the building because I don't know if you're going to have this experience because yours is a bigger undertaking. But a lot of people would say, yeah, I'll do that job. But then some other big builder that they were working with would come forward and all of a sudden they'd say, well, we can't do it for a month. And it kept happening. So we
Yeah.
ended up, I was doing a lot of stuff that I have never, ever, ever wanted to do in my life. And so it was quite the undertaking. So this is such a big thing.
Yeah.
So how many people are you figuring? Like you said, how many dwellings?
I want to have 20. So I want to
20?
be able to host, about, it'll probably be 4 people per. So that's not
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
And then meeting space that'll seat 100. So I think that'll work. We'll be living on property.
Yeah.
My son, who lives in that area, is actually very eager to get going with this too. So he's going to be learning, all the construction stuff. He's like extremely gifted in hosting and like hospitality, and
Mm-hmm.
so he's going to be basically managing a lot for us once we get it going. But yeah, to get there from here to there, I've told my husband, I'm like, calling me unskilled labor is very gracious. So, if you tell me like I'm a 4-year-old, go do this, I'm like, I'm up for doing anything, but I don't know anything.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, if you're anything like me, I learned so much during that process that, I had to catch myself when I would go look at new houses and things like that. I'd be critiquing all their stuff. Oh my gosh, they didn't do that right. They didn't do that right. It was like,
See it coming.
yeah, 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 yeah. It's amazing. Well, so let's go back to when you were working so much with the writing and everything, and you didn't, it wasn't even a baby for you yet. It had never even been thought of. So back then, where did you see you going? Because you had some people working for you and everything. Did you have an idea that suddenly got um redone because of your epiphany that you had, or did you have an idea?
Yeah, that's a good question. If I'm remembering correctly, because now, of course, it all blends, but
Right.
I don't think I did. I feel like I was, I built my agency up to a certain point. We were kind of cruising along. Everything was referral based. We were at capacity. And I was like, all right, this is, a lifestyle business. It'll be fine. I'll probably, when I'm old enough, wanting to retire or do something else, it'll just stop, because I always thought, well, you really can't sell a service business. You can, you
Yeah, you
absolutely
can.
can.
Yeah, big time.
You just have to build it strategically for that. And I hadn't really reached that point of going, here's what I'm going to do, in order to build it so I could sell it. So I just kind of figured, maybe the one, my project manager, head writer, maybe she would just take over and then be fine, like,
Yeah.
I didn't really know. And I really wasn't sure how we were going to stop doing VWs and start doing this, because it was very hands-on, with the design and body and all this kind of stuff. We had a whole team of guys out in the shop, but it's like, how is this going to work?
Yeah.
So I hadn't really thought it all through. Vickie. I
I
figured I'd figure
imagine.
that out.
Yeah. So, from what you were saying a few moments ago, a lot of the changes started when you started realizing that the being out in nature was regenerative for your soul and your mind and everything. And so that is the catalyst that really kind of helped propel you into this whole new arena, right?
Yeah, it really is. And it's gotten to the point. So I ended up getting chickens and we had them in our backyard. That was lovely. I was starting to learn to garden. Chickens and gardening don't necessarily go very well. They eat everything.
I was going to say they eat your stuff, the seeds,
Yes.
right?
So I turned our front yard into a food garden.
Okay.
Neighbors were like, oh, interesting.
Yes. I love your decor.
So it was interesting, but we never planned on moving really. I was, until I had this idea, I was just like, all right, this is our place. I don't care. We're not looking at resale. We're just doing what we want to do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So
but I
has that
started,
part changed since
yeah.
you have resale in mind now?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We lost a few chickens along the time. I did not replace them as they went to go be to their chicken reward. So we ended up with just one after a while. And I thought, well, she'll probably die from being lonely. We rehomed her. She's doing fine. But so, and then just undoing all I had done to the backyard and front yard. So now it's not great looking, but it's blank. I'm calling it the blank slate.
Yeah.
You can
A
just
clean
do
slate,
what you
clean
want.
slate. Yeah. Yeah.
So so yeah, there was some prep to undo all the
Yeah.
enjoyment of the
Well,
outside.
the cool thing is the thought that came to me was that all of that stuff was preparation for you to be on this new property and be able to create and sustain all that stuff that you're wanting to do, right? Because
Definitely.
you're already going in with some major knowledge.
Yes.
Because one of the things like where I live now, I would love to take my backyard and create this massive garden and plants and vegetables and everything. But I'll be honest, I've been doing some vegetables and stuff in like some above ground containers and
Mhm.
everything. They don't ever do very well.
Yeah, they have a hard
And
time.
yeah, yeah. So I think I don't know if it's because it's above ground containers and maybe there's not enough of the worms and all that stuff in there, or what the issue is. But it's like, it seems like such a daunting thing to have this big piece of property. And you said you're wanting to have a garden that I guess is that you're off grid. So you're creating all of your own food for all these things, right?
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. So,
Wow. Wow. I'm impressed. I'm very
yeah, it's
impressed.
we had really, I mean, it was, I've never been, I always thought I had a black thumb. I just couldn't keep house, still even house plants. I'm like, good luck to you. You know, like,
I'll pray over you every weekend. Maybe that'll help.
I promise I am not trying to kill you, but it might happen. I guess so. But outdoors was a whole different thing because, you know, half the time God remembers to water.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and, you know, with chickens and a garden, I could do pretty well, you know, as far as feeding us, which is really, that's a pretty empowering feeling.
yeah.
Um,
So are you using your writing gifts still?
Yes, I am. So I decided since, I mean, like literally from the time we bought the property, I thought, oh, 2 months and we'll be up there. We'll sell our house. We'll, you know, no, I'll raise enough. Oh, that was the first thing. I'll raise enough funds from investors that we'll just be able to start and we'll live here, but we'll build there and it'll be great. Well, no. In fact, we did not.
Yeah,
And then, you know, we listed the house last May. I'm like, okay, great. We'll be up there by the fall. We'll be up there by the winter. I'm like, oh, we're still not up there. But that has given me the time to think of other ways, like how am I going to serve the people that I want to serve now before I'm there? So
mm-hmm.
I built a newsletter called Entrepreneurs Gone Wild, which I featured you in. I loved.
Yes,
And for now, it's like, I'm like, all right, if I can even just nudge people to go outdoors just a few minutes a day with no phone, I
yeah,
feel like I will be starting to succeed on my mission, which is really to lure them outside and help them to build this habit and this like craving for time outdoors.
yeah.
Vickie, when I'm on the property, I feel like back in 5th grade when the teacher would say, oh, we have recess, and like running out the door. Yeah. It feels like that.
Yeah.
And that's not a feeling that, you know, since basically my whole life, my whole adult life, I've been very focused on
Mm-hmm.
survival.
Yeah.
All this, and there's not a, you know, play has not been a thing really. And I crave that. And
Mm-hmm.
seeing, like, I feel it when I'm on the property at Idlewild Woods. And it's like, I want to share that. I know that people are just desperate to have this feeling. And so I'm like, all right, I can't do that yet unless they want to just go sleep on the dirt.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a little
Like,
tent and a sleeping bag, you're good.
it's true. It's true.
You might have, and I don't know if do you ever, are you familiar with Michael Singer, the
I'm not
author,
sure. Oh, maybe.
The Untethered Soul?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So because in his books, because he's got the Living Untethered, and what's the name of the other one? I can't remember. Um, but anyway, in his books, one of the things he had was like this big piece of property, and people came and put up tents and things like that before anything else was built.
Yeah.
And they were loving it. I mean, he had so many people. You might even find before you can get all this other stuff done that
Yeah.
people are going to start wanting to experience what you're experiencing when you're there.
Definitely. Definitely. And once we're there, I tried to do it before we were there and let a couple people go. And it was like, it's a little dicey. Neighbors are like, somebody's on your land.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It just felt a little weird. But once we're there, yeah. And the first thing that's actually going in is some decks. That's what you build the geodesic domes on.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, okay.
we're going to build the decks first. We'll probably put some tents in, at first.
Oh, that
And
will keep me on the list
okay.
so that you can let me know. And because I want to come, I want to
Yeah,
come.
definitely. Definitely.
And it's funny because I'm not a big camper person. Now, my first husband, he liked to go camping, but he liked to camp at places where you had the music blaring and you had all
Oh,
this stuff. It's like, oh, I don't care for that. However, I would love to do, like, I went with my daughter for Girl Scout camp, and it was a platform tent,
Mhm.
and so we had the sleeping bags, the platform tent, and they did have running water and everything. So it was amazing to be there and experience that. And so it would be so cool to be there for this kind of thing
Yeah.
instead of, Girl Scouts. It was
Right.
okay, but but I can just feel it. And I'm having this vision right now of the kumbaya, and the big fire pit and everybody around it. And I can just sitting here talking to you, I can
You can
feel
feel it.
that
You can
that
see it. I
thing.
like it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I love it.
exciting. I'm
Yeah.
feeling it already. I'm ready to go.
It really is. We've been looking at the weather for every night, like for the weekends, like, okay,
Yeah.
well, we could take a load of stuff. We have all this construction stuff. We could take it and put it in the barn, which we haven't seen our barn in person yet.
Oh,
So
wow. Oh, wow.
it's new. And I keep looking, I'm like, all right, the nights have to be at least 50 degrees because there's no heat. I
Yeah.
can sleep in 50, but 40 and 30,
Well,
no.
that's why you need the thermodynamic sleeping bags,
There you go.
because, people sleep out in the ice caps and stuff with their
They
sleeping bags.
do.
You just have to go prepared.
That's a little hardier than me. But yeah. We'll bring dogs, it'll be like a 4 dog night.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. It's supposed to be a 3 dog night, but 4 will work.
So, yeah,
Well,
so it's exciting.
yeah, yeah. Just talking about it's gotten me excited. I really look forward to when you have all that property ready, and and people can come out there and just kind of sample it, and and see what it's kind of like. But I can, I mean, the vision that you have with all of this is just amazing. And like you were talking about being outside earlier, we had talked about when I was on your newsletter thingy, listen at me. But anyway, when I was being interviewed for that, we did talk a little bit about, because one of the things that I love, like I have my home office that I'm sitting in right now. And I had a time where I was so focused on work because I have these goals set up that, if I went and did anything that wasn't right here, I would feel like this angst about it.
Yeah.
And I kind of got outside of that. And when I go outside now, that's when all these wonderful ideas come to me. So I carry my phone with me, not to listen to anything. And I used to, but now I don't listen to anything, but I have it for my notes because I can tell Siri to I'm looking to see if she's listening.
Right.
Um I can tell her to just pull up my notes, and then I can just spill, my thoughts and all, so that I don't lose it by not documenting it somewhere. Because in the beginning, it was like I wouldn't do that. And then I would say, oh, I know I'll remember that. When I get back and say, what was that I was thinking that I wanted to do? Oh, so
The
now I
biggest
don't
lie
need the
ever.
chance.
I'll
I
remember that.
document it.
It's true. And I loved I mean, I ended up putting that in the newsletter because I was like,
Okay.
that's brilliant because, what happens is you don't usually, if you're outdoors and in nature and kind of just connecting dots and all this, you usually don't just get one idea.
Right.
One idea, you have a chance of remembering it.
Yeah.
You're probably going to get this landslide of ideas and they all build. And it's like you have to remember all of those for them all to make sense. So I thought your tip on that was excellent, just because you can just constantly, another note, another note, another note, and not have
Yeah.
to look at your screen, which is a
Yeah.
really
Because in
risky
the
thing to
beginning,
do.
I would try to type something out and I think, well, this is silly. I've got
Yeah.
this right here. Just do this. So,
Yeah.
and I got the idea because I was going to set a timer one night for what we were cooking. My daughter and I were cooking dinner, and she said, why don't you just ask, who to set a timer?
Like, wait, what?
Okay, I guess I should. So now I do that. And it was after I started doing that, I thought, well, why don't I just ask her to put this in my notes? And then I don't have to look at it. I don't have to find it. I don't have to do anything. And that works well for me. And so when I get back, because I've got an Apple phone and then I've got a Mac computer here. When I get back, I can look on my notes on the computer and there they are. And I can just put them where they need to be. So it's perfect for me. Because I don't remember if it was you and I that talked about it or not, but there was somebody that was telling me the story of Michael Jackson. Did we talk about that?
Yes, you. I think
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
you.
Okay. I couldn't remember if I had talked to you about it or not.
Yeah.
But for our listeners here, Michael Jackson, this is the story. Now, I'm assuming it is true, but you know what they say about assuming, so we're just not going to go there. However, that Michael Jackson woke up in the middle of the night with this idea of what he wanted to do for a video or something. And so he immediately called his manager, his producer, whatever, and told them what it was. And they said, do you know it's like 2 o'clock in the morning? Why are you calling me now? And he said, because Prince is just right down the hall. And if I don't make an action and tell you this, he's going to get the same idea and he's going to run with it. So I have to take ownership of it. And it's like, I loved that story because there's so many times that we get ideas and things and then we say, oh, that's a great idea, but I'll get to it later. And we either forget or we see somebody else has already created it.
100%.
And so I kind of feel like it's important to, when it's here and it's coming out, make sure you document it somewhere and say, this is mine. You can't take it. But then you still have to take action.
Yeah, I always think about it kind of like, all right, like getting a great idea. It's like getting a gift, right? So there's a giver giving you a gift and you're constantly like, oh, I'll open it later. I'll do
Yeah.
it later. They're going to stop.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way of looking at it. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I know we're getting close to time because you have a hard stop. And so I want to make sure that you can tell everybody how they can connect with you. And I will for the actual podcast when I put it out, I will have in the description all your contact information and everything for people. But for the ones that are listening and not seeing, if you can share that, that would be great.
Fantastic. So the best way is through entrepreneursgonewild.com. And I'm also on Instagram at Entrepreneurs Gone Wild. Those are the best ways.
Okay.
The name of the place that we're building is Idlewild Woods Retreat Center.
Spell that.
I wish I could.
Is it
Idlewild, IDYLLWILD.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm Southern, so it sounded like an O to me.
It's a hard one to do. And I've seen it. I lived in Charlotte for a little while and they had Idlewild was a street that they did Court Road Street, whatever, all this. And the name just stuck with me. And I'm like, oh, that's great. And it's meaningful. It's like, oh, this is perfect. So that's what we're building.
Well, I love it. I love it. And like I said, I can't wait to see the journey that you've got ahead of you because it is amazing. And I want to keep in contact because I definitely want to be one of your early adopters for coming in and checking it out because it is super exciting for me. And I will share, I'm writing a book right now and it's a fictional book and I might reach out to you for some of your property information because there's stuff like that in my book. Nice. And I may not know the answer, but you might. So I'll dive in with you.
Vickie, you have a standing invitation. So anytime you want to come on up.
All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here. And Sue, it has definitely been a tremendous pleasure having you here and hearing about your journey and sharing that with everybody. So I definitely look forward to being at Idlewild.
You got it. You learn fast. Thank you so much, Vickie. It's really been an honor. I'm delighted. Can't wait to meet you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And so I want to leave everybody with this one last word. The best way to predict the future is create it. So what are you creating? And with that, be blessed. Mwah.